The arrival. The gleaming spires of the Galactic Confederation's University of Advanced Sciences loomed before Jack Harper as he stepped off the transport. The human's eyes, accustomed to Earth's harsher light, squinted in the soft glow of the alien sun. He hefted his duffel bag, containing everything he owned in this strange new world, and took a deep breath of the perfectly calibrated atmosphere. "Another day in paradise," he muttered, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. As the first human to be accepted into the university's prestigious multidimensional physics program, Jack knew he was in for a challenge. But he hadn't expected the challenge to begin before he even entered the building. As he approached the towering crystal doors, they remained stubbornly shut. Jack frowned, looking around for some kind of control panel or sensor. Finding none, he reached out to push the door manually, only to have his hand pass right through it. "Fascinating, isn't it?" A melodious voice chimed from behind him. Jack turned to see a being that looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a sunflower floating nearby. "The door is phase-shifted to allow only authorized personnel to pass through. You must synchronize your biorhythms with the university's quantum field to gain entry." Jack blinked, processing the information. "Right. And how exactly does one do that?" The alien's translucent petals rippled in what might have been amusement. "Why, through deep meditation and attunement to the cosmic frequencies, of course. Most new students take at least a week to master the technique." Jack glanced at his watch, then back at the door. He had 15 minutes until orientation began. "A week, huh?" He mused, then shrugged. "Well, no time like the present." To the alien's astonishment, Jack took a few steps back, then charged at the door at full speed. Just before impact, he twisted his body, tucking into a roll. As he somersaulted, his body briefly aligned with the door's phase frequency, allowing him to tumble through to the other side. Jack stood up, brushing off his clothes, and grinned at the stunned alien still outside. "Sometimes you just gotta shake things up a bit," he said, offering a mock salute before heading deeper into the building. Word of Jack's unorthodox entry spread quickly through the university. By the time he reached the orientation hall, whispers and curious glances followed him everywhere. The room was filled with beings of all shapes, sizes, and consistencies. Some floated, some crawled, and others seemed to exist in more dimensions than Jack could perceive. As he took his seat, a tall, willowy creature with iridescent scales approached him. "You're the human, aren't you?" it asked, its voice a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "I am Zixelaria, top of my class on Nebula Prime. I must say, I'm surprised they let your kind in here." Jack met Zixelaria's gaze steadily. "Nice to meet you too. I'm Jack. And yeah, they let us in. Probably because we're too stubborn to stay out." Before Zixelaria could respond, a holographic image of a being made entirely of swirling energy appeared at the front of the room. "Welcome, new students, to the University of Advanced Sciences. I am Dean Quasar. You have all been chosen for your exceptional abilities and potential. Here, you will push the boundaries of known science and explore the mysteries of the universe." The dean's gaze seemed to linger on Jack for a moment. "Some of you come from worlds very different from this one. You may find our methods challenging, but remember, diversity of thought is the cornerstone of innovation. Embrace the differences among you, for they are the key to unlocking new discoveries." As the orientation continued, Jack found himself both overwhelmed and exhilarated. The concepts being discussed were far beyond anything he'd encountered on Earth, yet he felt a familiar excitement building within him. This was why he'd come here, to push himself, to learn, to grow. The first real test came during their introductory quantum mechanics class. Professor Lume, a being composed of pure light, presented a problem on the holoboard. "Your task is to calculate the probability of a particle tunneling through a potential barrier in a 5-dimensional space-time continuum." The alien students immediately began inputting complex equations into their neural interfaces. Jack, lacking such technology, pulled out a battered notebook and pencil, earning a few amused looks from his classmates. As the others worked, their frustration grew. The problem seemed to defy conventional solutions. Jack, however, found himself thinking back to his days tinkering with his grandfather's old radio, trying to pick up signals from distant stars. With a sudden burst of inspiration, Jack began sketching a diagram. He wasn't following the standard approach, but instead was mapping out the problem as if it were a series of radio waves, each dimension represented by a different frequency. "Time's up," Professor Loomy announced. "Who would like to present their solution?" Silence fell over the room. Even Zixelaria, usually eager to show off, remained quiet. Then, to everyone's surprise, Jack raised his hand. The human. Professor Loomy's light flickered in what might have been surprise. "Very well. Let's see your approach." Jack walked to the front of the room, his rough sketches a stark contrast to the sleek technology around him. He began to explain his solution, using analogies from radio wave propagation and Earth's quantum tunneling experiments. As he spoke, the alien student's expressions changed from skepticism to confusion to dawning comprehension. Professor Loomy's glow intensified. "Fascinating," the professor said when Jack finished. "Your method is unorthodox, to say the least, but it appears to be correct. How did you arrive at this approach?" Jack shrugged, a bit embarrassed by the attention. "Back on Earth, we don't have the advanced tech you guys do. We often have to improvise, find workarounds. I just applied that same thinking here." The room buzzed with excited whispers. Zixelaria stared at Jack with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. Professor Loomy addressed the class. "Students, take note. True innovation often comes not from following established patterns, but from finding new ways to look at old problems. It seems our human colleague has much to teach us about the value of—" "What did you call it, Jack?" "Thinking outside the box," Jack replied with a grin. As the class ended and the students filed out, Jack found himself surrounded by curious aliens, all eager to learn more about his unique perspective. For the first time since arriving, he felt a sense of belonging. Zixelaria approached him last. "I may have misjudged you, human," they said, extending a scaled appendage. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I realized." Jack shook the offered limb, his smile genuine. "Thanks, Zixelaria. And hey, there's plenty you could teach me too. How about we grab some, whatever passes for coffee around here, and swap some ideas?" As they walked off together, Jack couldn't help but feel excited about the future. He had come to this alien world to learn, but it seemed he had something to teach as well. The adventure was just beginning, and he couldn't wait to see where it would lead. The challenge. Weeks passed, and Jack found himself settling into a routine at the Galactic Confederation's University of Advanced Sciences. His unorthodox methods continued to both baffle and impress his alien classmates and professors. However, the real test of his abilities was yet to come. Professor Nexus, a being composed of interwoven streams of data, stood before the class, his form flickering with anticipation. "Today," he announced, his voice a harmonious blend of binary code, "we embark on the most ambitious project in the history of our institution." The classroom, usually abuzz with the gentle hum of neural interfaces and the soft glow of bioluminescent students, fell into an expectant hush. "Your challenge," Nexus continued, "is to design a functional model of a trans-dimensional communication device. This device must be capable of sending and receiving messages across parallel universes without causing temporal paradoxes or dimensional collapse." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Even Zixelaria, who had become something of a friend to Jack, looked pale beneath their iridescent scales. "You will have one standard galactic month to complete this task," Nexus added. "You may work in teams or individually. The team or individual with the most promising design will have their prototype constructed and tested." As the professor's form dissipated, signaling the end of the class, the room erupted into a frenzy of excited and nervous chatter. Jack sat back in his chair, mind racing with possibilities. "So, human," Zixlaria sidled up to him, their voice a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Care to pool our resources on this one?" Jack grinned. "Thought you'd never ask. Let's grab Quark and Lumi too. I have a feeling we're going to need all the perspectives we can get on this one." Over the next few weeks, Jack and his alien friends poured themselves into the project. They spent countless hours in the university's holographic simulation chambers, testing and refining their ideas. Zixlaria's expertise in quantum entanglement proved invaluable, while Quark, a sentient cloud of subatomic particles, provided crucial insights into the nature of dimensional barriers. Lumi, true to their radiant nature, shed light on the intricacies of information transmission across nonlinear timelines. But as the deadline loomed closer, they found themselves hitting a wall. Their design, while theoretically sound, kept running into the same problem: dimensional bleed. Every time they attempted to open a communication channel between universes, the simulation would end with catastrophic breakdown of the targeted reality. "It's hopeless," Quark sighed, their particles drooping in dejection. "We've tried every variation of quantum tunneling and still can't maintain stability." Lumi's glow had dimmed to a faint flicker. "Perhaps we're approaching this from the wrong angle, but I can't imagine what other approach we could take." Jack had been uncharacteristically quiet for the past hour, his brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, he sat up straight, eyes wide with realization. "Guys," he said, excitement creeping into his voice, "I think we've been thinking about this all wrong. We've been trying to force our way through the dimensional barriers, but what if we don't need to break through at all?" Zixlaria tilted their head in confusion. "What do you mean?" "The whole point is to communicate across dimensions." Jack nodded eagerly. "Yes, but hear me out. Back on Earth, we have this thing called quantum entanglement. Two particles can be linked so that the state of one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are." "We know about quantum entanglement, Jack," Lumi said gently. "It's a fundamental principle of trans-dimensional physics." "Right, but we've been thinking about it on too large a scale," Jack explained, his words tumbling out faster as his excitement grew. "What if, instead of trying to open a massive portal between universes, we create millions of tiny entangled particles? Each pair would be split between our universe and the target universe." Quark's particles began to swirl with interest. "Go on." "We arrange these particles into a massive array," Jack continued, sketching rapidly on his ever-present notebook. "Each pair acts like a pixel in a giant cosmic screen. By manipulating the states of the particles on our side, we could create patterns that would instantly be reflected in the corresponding particles in the other universe." Zixlaria's scales shimmered as understanding dawned, like a giant interdimensional display. "Exactly," Jack beamed. "We're not sending messages through the dimensional barrier. We're simply changing the state of particles that already exist on both sides." Lumi's glow brightened considerably. This could work. It would bypass the issue of dimensional bleed entirely. The team threw themselves into refining Jack's idea. They spent the next week fine-tuning the concept, working out the technical details of how to manipulate and read the states of quintillions of quantum particles simultaneously. As the deadline approached, they put the finishing touches on their design. The final product was a marvel of interdisciplinary science, a device that combined principles of quantum mechanics, information theory, and good old-fashioned human ingenuity. On the day of the presentation, the atmosphere in the grand auditorium was electric. Teams of aliens from across the galaxy presented their designs, each more complex and theoretically impressive than the last. When it was their turn, Jack stepped up to the holographic podium, his alien friends by his side. As he began to explain their design, he could see the confusion on the faces, or equivalent sensory organs, of the judges. Their design seemed almost primitive compared to the others, lacking the flashy dimensional rifts and complex space-time manipulations of their competitors. But as Jack delved deeper into the elegance of their solution, the judges' expressions began to change. Confusion gave way to interest, then to excitement, and finally to outright awe. Professor Nexus, who had been stoic throughout the other presentations, actually flickered with enthusiasm. "This is remarkable," he said when Jack finished. "You've managed to sidestep the entire issue of dimensional traversal. It's so simple, yet so profound." Zixelaria stepped forward. "We couldn't have done it without Jack's unique perspective. His ability to see past our preconceived notions of trans-dimensional communication was the key to our breakthrough." The other students in the auditorium buzzed with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Jack could hear whispers of "the human did it again," and "how do they think of these things?" As they left the stage, Jack felt a surge of pride, not just in himself, but in his team. They had taken his initial idea and elevated it, refining and perfecting it in ways he never could have alone. "You know," Quark said, their particles dancing with excitement, "I think we might have just revolutionized trans-dimensional communication." Jack laughed. "Maybe, but more importantly, I think we've shown what's possible when different species work together. Each of us brought something unique to the table." Zixelaria nodded solemnly. "Indeed, perhaps this is the true lesson. The challenges of the universe are too vast for any one species to tackle alone. But together, Lumi finished, their glow warm and bright. There's no limit to what we can achieve." As they walked out of the auditorium, already discussing improvements and potential applications for their design, Jack couldn't help but feel that they had accomplished something far greater than winning a university competition. They had taken a small but significant step towards a more interconnected and cooperative galactic community. And for a human far from home, surrounded by alien friends and endless possibilities, that felt like the greatest achievement of all. The aftermath. The days following the trans-dimensional communication device presentation were a whirlwind of activity for Jack and his team. Their innovative design had not only won the competition, but had also sparked a firestorm of debate and excitement throughout the Galactic Confederation's scientific community. As Jack entered the Grand Lecture Hall for Professor Nexus's advanced seminar, he could feel the eyes of his alien classmates upon him. The whispers and glances that had once been tinged with skepticism now carried notes of admiration and curiosity. "Ah, our resident revolutionary has arrived." Professor Nexus's data streams coalesced into a smiling face. "Jack, would you mind joining me at the front? I believe your recent work deserves some further discussion." Jack made his way to the podium, acutely aware of the mix of excitement and trepidation building in his chest. He'd faced countless challenges since arriving at the university, but addressing a room full of the galaxy's brightest minds about his own theories, that was new territory. "Now then," Professor Nexus began, his form shimmering with anticipation, "let's delve into the implications of what Mr. Harper and his team have proposed. Their design doesn't just solve the problem of trans-dimensional communication. It challenges our fundamental understanding of how information can be transmitted across realities." A tentacled being in the front row raised an appendage. "But Professor, doesn't this method limit the amount of data that can be transferred? Surely a direct portal would allow for more robust communication." Jack cleared his throat, surprised at his own confidence as he addressed the question. "Actually, that's not necessarily true. While our method might seem limited at first glance, it's important to remember that we're dealing with quantum states. Each pixel in our array can represent not just binary information, but a superposition of multiple states. Theoretically, the amount of data we could transmit is, well, astronomical." The room buzzed with excited murmurs. Zixelaria, sitting in the front row, beamed with pride. Another student, a being composed of swirling gases, spoke up. "But what about the energy requirements? Maintaining quantum entanglement on such a massive scale must be incredibly demanding." Jack nodded, appreciating the insightful question. "You're absolutely right. That's actually one of the biggest challenges we faced. But we found a solution by looking at some old Earth technology, specifically how old cathode ray tube televisions worked." He sketched a quick diagram on the holoboard. Instead of trying to maintain entanglement for all particles simultaneously, we scan across the array, much like how a CRT TV scanned across a screen. This allows us to focus our energy on a small subset of particles at a time, dramatically reducing the power requirements. Professor Nexus's data streams swirled with excitement. Fascinating. You've taken principles from a primitive technology and applied them to one of the most advanced concepts in trans-dimensional physics. This is precisely the kind of innovative thinking we need. The discussion continued for hours, with students and faculty alike probing every aspect of the design. Jack found himself fielding questions on quantum mechanics, information theory, and even the philosophical implications of their work. To his surprise, he held his own, drawing not just on the advanced knowledge he'd gained at the university, but also on the practical, out-of-the-box thinking that was his human heritage. As the seminar wound down, Professor Nexus addressed the class once more. I hope you all realize the significance of what we've witnessed here today. Mr. Harper and his team have shown us that true innovation often comes not from adhering rigidly to established principles, but from being willing to approach problems from entirely new angles. The professor's form seemed to expand, filling the room with a soft, data-rich glow. Moreover, they've demonstrated the power of diverse perspectives. A human, working alongside beings from across our galaxy, has produced something none of us could have conceived of alone. This, students, is the true power of galactic cooperation. As the class dispersed, Jack found himself surrounded by a crowd of curious aliens, all eager to discuss the project further. Zixelaria managed to squeeze through, their scales shimmering with excitement. "Jack, that was incredible," they exclaimed. "You've become quite the celebrity, you know. The Galactic Science Council has requested a full presentation of our work." Jack's eyes widened. The Science Council, but they oversee research for the entire Confederation. Zixelaria nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. They're saying our work could revolutionize everything from space exploration to diplomatic relations between parallel realities." Can you imagine it, Jack? We might be on the brink of opening up communication with entirely new universes. As the implications of their work began to sink in, Jack felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. They had set out to solve a theoretical problem for a class project, and now found themselves at the forefront of a potential galactic revolution. Later that evening, as Jack sat in the university's arboretum, watching the alien flora glow softly in the twilight, he reflected on how far he'd come. From a curious kid gazing at the stars from his backyard on Earth, to a pioneer in trans-dimensional physics at the galaxy's most prestigious university. Quark floated up beside him, their particles forming a rough approximation of a smile. "Credit for your thoughts, Jack." Jack chuckled. "Just thinking about home, I guess, about how impossible all this would have seemed just a few years ago." Quark's particles swirled thoughtfully. "You miss your planet." "Sometimes," Jack admitted, "but then I look around at all this, the friends I've made, the discoveries we're making, and I realize that, in a way, I've found a new home here." Quark's form brightened. "We're glad you're here, Jack. Your species brings something unique to our galactic community, a kind of adaptability and creativity that many of us had forgotten was possible." Jack smiled, touched by the sentiment. "Thanks, Quark. I think we all bring something unique. That's what makes this all so exciting." As they sat there, watching the stars come out, stars that Jack now knew held countless worlds and wonders, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than anything he'd ever experienced. He was no longer just a student or even just a human. He was part of something greater, a galactic community pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And as the soft glow of alien plants mingled with the starlight, Jack Harper, the human who had stunned the Galactic Confederation with his simple solutions, knew that this was only the beginning. The universe, in all its infinite variations, was waiting to be explored, and he was ready for the challenge. The collaboration. The anticipation in the air was palpable as Jack and his team stood before the imposing doors of the Galactic Science Council's chamber. The curved, iridescent walls seemed to pulse with an inner light, a reflection of the collective intelligence gathered within. "Ready for this?" Jack asked, glancing at his alien friends. Zixlaria's scales rippled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "As ready as we'll ever be. Let's show them what cross-species collaboration can achieve." As they entered, Jack's breath caught in his throat. The chamber was a vast amphitheater, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others were submerged in specialized environmental tanks, and still others existed as pure energy forms. At the center stood a holographic podium, shimmering with possibility. The head of the council, a being of pure thought named Synapse, materialized before them. "Welcome, young innovators. We have gathered here today to witness what may be the dawn of a new era in trans-dimensional communication. Please, begin your presentation." Jack stepped forward, feeling the weight of countless alien gazes upon him. He took a deep breath and began to explain their design, his voice growing stronger with each word. As he spoke, holographic models materialized around him, illustrating the intricacies of their quantum pixel array. The council members leaned forward, or their species equivalent, their attention fully captured. Questions flew from all corners of the chamber, probing every aspect of the design. Jack and his team fielded them confidently, their diverse backgrounds allowing them to address concerns from multiple angles. As the presentation neared its end, a ripple of excitement passed through the council. Synapse's form pulsed with what Jack had come to recognize as approval. "This is truly remarkable work," Synapse declared. "Your approach is unlike anything we've seen before. The potential applications are staggering." But just as the team began to bask in the glow of their success, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Holographic screens materialized, displaying chaotic scenes from across the galaxy. Synapse's form flickered with urgency. "We have a crisis. A chain of unstable wormholes has opened near the Andromeda galaxy. They're causing severe gravitational distortions, threatening several populated systems." The chamber erupted into a frenzy of worried chatter. Jack exchanged alarmed glances with his teammates. With all due respect, Jack spoke up, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I think our trans-dimensional communication device might be able to help." The room fell silent, all attention turning back to the human and his alien friends. "Explain," Synapse prompted. Jack nodded, his mind racing. "Our device works by manipulating quantum-entangled particles across dimensions. If we can adapt it to target the space-time fabric around the wormholes, we might be able to stabilize them, or even close them entirely." Zixlaria's eyes widened with understanding. "Of course, we could use the quantum array to create a stabilizing field, essentially stitching the torn space-time back together." Quark's particles swirled excitedly, and my knowledge of subatomic interactions could help fine-tune the process to minimize collateral damage to the surrounding space. Lumi's glow intensified. "I could assist in modulating the energy output to prevent overload. This could work." Synapse's form pulsed with a mix of hope and urgency. "This is highly theoretical and potentially dangerous. Are you certain you can adapt your device in time?" Jack met the council leader's gaze steadily. "No, we're not certain. But right now, it might be our best shot. We'll need resources, and we'll need them fast." For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then Synapse spoke. "Very well. You have the full support of the Galactic Science Council. Whatever you need, you shall have. But remember, the fate of millions now rests in your hands." What followed was a whirlwind of activity unlike anything Jack had ever experienced. The team was whisked away to a state-of-the-art laboratory, where they worked tirelessly to adapt their communication device into a wormhole stabilizer. Days blurred together as they pushed the boundaries of science and their own endurance. Jack's human ability to think creatively under pressure proved invaluable, while his alien friend's specialized knowledge filled in the gaps. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and no time at all, they were ready. The modified device was massive, filling an entire space station positioned at the edge of the affected region. As Jack initiated the startup sequence, he felt the weight of entire worlds on his shoulders. "All systems are go," Zixlaria reported, their scales shimmering with tension. "Energy levels stable," Lumi added, their glow pulsing in rhythm with the device's power core. "Quantum field alignment complete," Quark chimed in, their particles forming intricate patterns that mirrored the device's operations. Jack took a deep breath. "All right, team. This is it. Initiating quantum stabilization field in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the activation button, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the view screens lit up with a spectacular display. Streams of quantum energy flowed from their device, enveloping the chaotic wormholes in a shimmering web of stabilizing force. For agonizing minutes, they watched as their creation battled against the forces of cosmic chaos. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the wormholes began to shrink. "It's working," Zixlaria exclaimed, their voice filled with awe. Indeed, one by one, the wormholes collapsed in on themselves, leaving behind nothing but stable, undisturbed space. As the last anomaly winked out of existence, a cheer went up from the monitoring stations across the galaxy. Jack slumped back in his chair, exhausted but elated. They had done it. A human and his alien friends, working together, had saved millions of lives and possibly changed the course of galactic history. As congratulations poured in from across the cosmos, Jack looked at his team, at Zixlaria's shimmering scales, Quark's jubilant particle dance, and Lumi's radiant glow. He realized that this moment, this triumph, was about more than just averting a crisis. It was proof of what could be achieved when different species came together, combining their unique strengths and perspectives. In that moment, Jack knew that the true power of their discovery wasn't just in the technology they had created, but in the bridges they had built between worlds. As the starfield outside the station window twinkled peacefully, Jack Harper, the human who had come so far from home, felt that he had finally found his place in the vast, wondrous tapestry of the universe. The revelation. In the weeks following the wormhole crisis, the Galactic Confederation buzzed with excitement and change. The successful collaboration between Jack's team and the Galactic Science Council had opened new avenues of interspecies cooperation, and the ripples of their achievement were felt across the cosmos. Jack found himself standing once again in the grand chamber of the Galactic Science Council, but this time the atmosphere was markedly different. Gone was the tension of crisis. In its place was an air of celebration and possibility. Synapse materialized before the assembled crowd, their form more vibrant than ever. "Esteemed colleagues, honored guests, we gather today not just to celebrate a monumental achievement, but to usher in a new era of galactic collaboration." The chamber filled with a chorus of approving sounds from various species. Jack stood with his team, still somewhat in awe of the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Synapse continued. "The recent crisis has shown us that the challenges we face are too great for any one species to tackle alone. But it has also shown us the incredible potential that lies in diversity. Today, we recognize not just the technical achievement of creating a trans-dimensional stabilizer, but the greater achievement of breaking down the barriers between our kinds." The council leader's gaze swept across the room, finally settling on Jack and his friends. "Jack Harper, Zixlaria, Quark, Lumi, please step forward." As they approached the center of the chamber, Jack felt a surge of emotion. He glanced at his teammates, seeing in their alien features the same mix of pride and humility that he felt. "Your work," Synapse declared, "has not only saved countless lives, but has also opened our eyes to new possibilities. You have shown us that true innovation comes not from adhering to established norms, but from the collision of different perspectives and experiences." A holographic display materialized, showing the schematics of their device. This technology, born from the union of human ingenuity and alien knowledge, will now serve as the foundation for a new initiative. We are establishing the Interdimensional Exploration and Communication Division, and we want you to lead it." Jack's eyes widened in surprise. He looked at his teammates, seeing his own shock mirrored in their expressions. Zixelaria was the first to find their voice. "Us? But we're just students." Synapse's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "You ceased to be just students the moment you took on a challenge that had baffled our greatest minds for centuries. Your fresh perspective, your willingness to challenge conventions, and your ability to work across species lines are exactly what we need to move forward." Quark's particles swirled excitedly. "Think of the possibilities. We could establish communication with parallel universes, explore realities we've only dreamed of." Lumi's glow pulsed with enthusiasm. "We could bridge gaps not just between species, but between entire dimensions. The potential for knowledge exchange is limitless." Jack felt a surge of excitement, but also a twinge of uncertainty. He thought of Earth, so far away, and the path that had led him here. "This is an incredible honor," he said, "but it's also a huge responsibility. Are you sure we're ready for this?" Synapse's form seemed to soften. "Mr. Harper, when you first arrived at our university, many doubted whether a human could keep up with our advanced studies. You not only kept up, you excelled. And in doing so, you taught us all a valuable lesson about the power of diverse perspectives." The council leader continued. "You and your team have shown us that readiness isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the curiosity to ask new questions, the creativity to imagine new solutions, and the courage to challenge established thinking. By that measure, you are more than ready." Jack looked at his friends, seeing in their alien faces the same mix of excitement and determination that he felt. They had come so far together, overcome so many challenges. Why stop now? With a deep breath, Jack turned back to Synapse. "We accept," he said, his voice firm with resolve. "On one condition." A murmur ran through the chamber. Synapse's form flickered with curiosity. "And what would that be?" "That this division isn't just about exploration and communication," Jack said. "I want it to be a place where beings from all species can come together, where we actively seek out and nurture diverse perspectives. Because that's what got us here, and that's what will take us forward." The chamber fell silent for a moment, then erupted in approving cheers. Synapse's form glowed brightly. "Mr. Harper, you continue to surprise and impress us. Your condition is not just accepted, it is celebrated. This is exactly the kind of thinking we need." As the ceremony concluded and plans for the new division began to take shape, Jack found a quiet moment with his team. "Can you believe this?" he asked, still somewhat in awe of the turn their lives had taken. Zixelaria's scales shimmered with excitement. "It's incredible. To think, all of this started because you looked at a problem differently." Quark bounced happily. "It just goes to show, sometimes the simplest solutions are the most profound." Lumi glowed warmly. "And sometimes it takes an outsider's perspective to see those simple solutions." Jack smiled, looking out at the star-filled vista beyond the council chamber. He thought of Earth, of the long journey that had brought him here, of all the challenges and triumphs along the way. "You know," he said, "when I left Earth, I thought I was leaving home to explore the universe, but I've realized something." His friends looked at him curiously. "Home isn't just where you come from," Jack continued. "It's where you find your purpose, where you make a difference. And right here, with all of you, working to bring the universe closer together, this feels like home." As they stood there, a human and his alien friends, looking out at the vast expanse of space and the infinite possibilities it held, Jack Harper knew that their greatest adventures were still to come. They had not just changed the course of galactic history. They had opened the door to a future where the boundaries between species, between dimensions, and between what was possible and impossible would continue to blur and expand. And in that moment, surrounded by the wonders of the cosmos and the warmth of friendship that transcended species, Jack realized that this grand, infinite, ever-surprising universe was where he truly belonged. The end of one chapter and the beginning of countless more.